Donna Duncan, the Urban Stitcher, and this is the last of 3 videos working on the Oblation Paper and Press thread sketch. In the first video, I demonstrated how to transfer an image to canvas. In the second video, I showed several techniques for completing the detail. In this video, I will complete the thread sketch and show how to finish the edges and make the thread sketch ready for framing. I hope you enjoy. I think I'm going to put something like bamboo in these planters, and I'll use 3 different shades of green, this kind of mid limey green, and then this very dark green, and then I'll use this very light green at the end to sort of indicate sunlight on some of the leaves. The bamboo will, that's why I filled in quite a bit of the background, because it will not be really dense foliage. So let's see how that works out. Now I'm putting my plants in the planter boxes. I'm keeping my picture close at hand, but I'm just freely adding what I feel like looks like a natural growth pattern. For the leaves, I'm using the mid-range green now, and I'm just traveling up and down the path of the stems that I've already put down in the dark green. But for each leaf, I kind of move my fabric so it pulls out a nice long, makes a nice long stitch. And I do 2 or 3 of those. And they're not these leaves are not going to be dense like in a tree. So just wherever I feel like putting them. We'll go back in a little while and put a little bit of light green on some of them to give them some sparkle, and maybe make just 2 or 3 really light green ones in there. And you can build these up as much as you want. Since I'm going to add another color, I'm not building these up quite so much. So I started out on the planters with this really light gray-green color, and then I went to the little bit darker shade, almost a Loden green, and now I have a very dark mossy green, and I'm so this is the 3rd color on these planters, and this is going to be my shadow color. I'm putting a little bit more closer to the back where the planters are against the building, and then I put a little bit around the bottom, and up the front edge. And I'll just use this around the top to kind of give it some definition. And there was kind of a scroll work pattern on these planters, but I'm afraid of too much detail. I'll have it messy, so I'm just putting a little bit of work around the edge. I'll move on to the next planter. same thing around the bottom. Gives them a little bit of shape. This last planter in the row is a square planter. So I'm just putting a little shadow around the bottom. Now I've decided to put some pale yellow highlights in the bamboo. And I'm not traveling with my stitches because the pale yellow will draw too much attention if I just continue to stitch to the next highlight. So I'm just lifting my presser foot and my needle and just pulling the thread wherever I want the highlighted leaves. When I think I have enough thread and enough color, I will go back and outline the elements in black. I think that really makes them pop. Sometimes I have to go back and add a little bit of color here and there, but it's easier for me to tell when it's done once the black outline is completed. Add a little heavier line here at the front of the typewriter to kind of give a feeling of a shadow. The Oblation thread sketch is done. We've completed the shrubbery and all of the black and the black outlining around all of the elements. And now I'm ready to finish it. Depending on what I'm doing, whether it's a greeting card or a picture, I finish in different ways. But one thing you have to do is secure the edges, because you can see that these threads will continue to ravel until that's all done. So this picture is going to be finished for matting. And so I have a mat that doesn't have to be the final mat, but just the size that I want to do. And I want to make sure that all of my stitching the bare canvas does not show through through the opening of the mat. And to make sure that when I trim it, I don't trim it too far in one direction or the other, I'll place some painter's tape just around the edges so that when I take the mat away, I know where the opening is going to be. Whoops, I moved that a little bit, but it's all right. So now the inside area of the mat is marked with the painter's tape. I can lift that away, and I have now a clear area that can be cut away without disturbing the actual picture that will show in the mat. So I'm going to line up my quilting ruler with the tape, and I am going to leave about a 1/4 inch on the outside of each of the taped areas so that I can put some kind of zigzag stitch in here, and it will not show in the open area of the mat. Making sure I have square corners. And it doesn't matter if I cut away some of the stitching, that is not going to be impacted. The rest of the stitches will not fray or come loose. I like using cardstock to finish the thread sketch. It protects the threads on the back, and although I have had people who want to see the back of the thread sketch, typically when I'm getting them ready for a show or for sale, I will go ahead and cover the back. After trimming the picture to the size I want, I use some kind of decorative zigzag stitch to secure the edges, and I've practiced with the stitch color and width on this little trim piece so that I make sure I'm going to be happy with it on the picture. And I secured used that zigzag stitch around the entire picture before adding the cardstock. And I do that because sometimes I use a fairly elaborate decorative stitch, and all of those needle points, when it perforates the paper, I think eventually the paper may give away. So now that that's completed, I'm just going around the entire edge of the picture with a straight stitch in the same complementary color that I used for the zigzag stitch. If you were going to use just a regular zigzag stitch, you could do that with the cardstock on the back all at once. I don't think you'd have I don't think you'd be in danger of weakening the cardstock with too many holes, just with a regular zigzag stitch. But I used a bit of a looping edge stitch that has quite a few needle perforations per stitch. So now we have the completed picture on the cardstock and ready to be matted and framed. I hope these videos have answered any questions you may have had about how I create a thread sketch. I appreciate your interest and your comments. Thank you for watching.